Welcome, Scott. This is like awesome day for me because Scott Ambler is right here, the author of the books about the Disciplined Agile Delivery Toolkit, the way of working. One of my favorite books because I'm a disciplined agile practitioner. So he also wrote Unified Process, Agile Software Development Unit, Unified Modeling Language, and Capability Maturity Model Development. And he is the co-founder of Disciplined Agile Toolkit as well. So, Scott, welcome to the channel. And I think all the people who are going to watch this interview would definitely get deep insights on how they can handle the situation, the context based situations very well. So, over to you, Scott. A brief about what you're doing currently and what is your mission.
Yeah, definitely. So thanks for having me. So my current mission, I guess, is to help organizations improve their approaches to data, to improve the data quality, to improve their approaches to data warehousing, adopt agile database techniques, agile data ways of working, and good stuff like that. With AI and the desire to make data-driven decisions, data quality has just become even more important in organizations, and yet most organizations really struggle in that space and will continue to do so until they decide to adopt agile ways of working and thinking.
Hmm. And we have been living in the VUCA world for a long time now. A lot of recession. Recently, there is a technical recession as well in UK, in Japan, and other places, and it's going to catch up in other places. So, how can project teams emerge stronger from this economic downturn, Scott?
Yeah, well, I think it's always about providing value, and it's the team wants to focus on learning, on getting better, on improving, but visibly doing so and showing that. So I think that's absolutely critical. A lot of teams will provide value, but then they don't toot their own horns, right? They don't make it clear what value they are delivering, and they can get into trouble as a result because when there is an economic downturn, organizations will start cutting various initiatives, and you don't want to be one of the ones that gets cut.
Absolutely. And the leaders and the managers, the leadership styles have changed over a period of time. So, how should the managers and leaders adjust their leadership style during this recession because they have to manage teams very well as well?
Yeah, well, I think being data driven or perhaps data informed is absolutely critical these days. Are you adding real value? Are you focused on what needs to be done? Are you not focused on what doesn't need to be done? Are you making decisions based on facts, or are you making decisions based on gut feel? Because it's usually the factor-driven discussions and decisions are the better ones. So I think there's a lot to being smarter about the way that you work and being more disciplined in your manner of working is absolutely critical.
Hmm. So, the importance of continuous skill development from project team members during tough times will become more and more compared to what they were doing earlier.
I think so. I think if you look at it from the point of view of an individual, you need to look out for yourself, and so you want to be constantly learning, constantly getting better, expanding your skills. Be reading, be trying new things, trying to get new experiences on your resume. I think that's absolutely critical, and because that's what you're going to be hired for, right? You'll get your next job, you'll move on to your next team based on the new and emerging skills that you've gained on your current team. So you've always got to be looking to the next engagement.
And you've been driving a lot of skill developments yourself, right? Like you've been doing it for several corporates. You've been writing books around skill development. So, can you share some successful initiatives for upskilling teams during the recession, which you would recommend?
Yeah, so I think working more collaboratively and pairing, non-solo work, allowing people to pair up and share skill, pair up to do the work, but as you're doing so, pick up new skills from each other. So, when you can pair up with somebody with a different set of skills and a different way of working than you, then you're going to pick up a lot from them just through osmosis, basically. So I think there's that, but also investing in your people. I'm a firm believer in training and in letting people buy books and take the time, have the time to learn and to watch video, watch the occasional video and to have slack time in their schedule in order to learn. I don't want people 100% utilized. That's absolutely foolish. For many reasons, but certainly just from a learning point of view and an improvement point of view, people need some slack time in order to recover from work and to extend their skills and knowledge.
So how can organizations foster that culture of explicit knowledge sharing amongst the team members?
Yeah, well, I think that's a great question. It's not easy. If that's not in your culture already, then you got to start chipping away at it. So start celebrating the fact that people are sharing skills. Simple things like having brown bag lunches where people volunteer to share some new thing that they learned is critical. But having time in the schedule, and whoever is leading the team, they should be prompting people to take a couple hours this week and learn something, or be explicitly prodding them to sign up for some training. I've worked in organizations where not only did you have a minimum amount of training that you got each year, but there really wasn't a maximum. So fundamentally there is, but they would insist on people getting at least 1 or 2 weeks of training every year, because they knew they needed staff that had modern, up-to-date skills. So it's a choice. It's a choice to spend the money. It's a choice to make the time available to people. But you've also got to keep an eye on people and make sure they're doing it, because it's really easy to say take 1 or 2 weeks this year and go to a conference, get some training, whatever. But then November, December rolls around and the person hasn't done anything yet. So you got to hold their feet to the fire in some cases.
Yeah. And we always talk about business value, and that comes with having a business acumen itself, right? So how do we ensure the teams at junior level, at engineer level, have that business acumen and think about the business value in a company, any company for that matter? Should CEO play a role to communicate the business value to the lowest level, or how do we handle such situation?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it is you've got to get people to understand that there is value in understanding the business that you're in and basic business fundamentals. One way you can do it is ask the techies to help you to justify a project, to justify what they're doing. Where is the business value? What are the numbers? What's the cost benefit analysis? And get them to explore those concepts, because they're smart people, they can figure it out. But if they've never been asked to, then they probably won't. And I found that people start to understand why when you push them through an exercise like that, they start to understand why we do certain things. I'm also a firm believer in having developers operate and support the systems that they build. I've written about that for decades, long before DevOps and before it became popular. I was a firm believer in, first of all, having developers maintain their own code as well as other people's code to make sure, to teach them what it's like to be on the receiving end of the garbage that they produce. Because a lot of, if a developer has never had to maintain somebody else's code, chances are pretty good they're not a very good developer, because they're writing stuff that's not maintainable or only maintainable by them, and that's just no good. But then also support your system to understand the experiences of the end users and to appreciate what they go through. And because I've seen people build things that they thought were amazing and this was the best user interface ever, and then and I would look at them going, oh my god, this is crap, but they loved it. So and you can't get into that argument, right? It's like, because it's going to be them versus me. So it's like, you know what, dude, let's put it out there, get in the hands of our users. But I want you on the support desk for the first week or so to listen in on what people think. And it's a huge wake-up call usually for a lot of people, because they don't realize that that not everybody sees the world the same way that they do.
So we talked about trainings, we talked about explicit knowledge, which comes with the training and structure and best practices. What about the tacit knowledge, the mentoring piece, which comes from the experience? How do we ensure that the organizations, promote this tacit knowledge more and more, or how can individual think of obtaining tacit knowledge or mentoring from different people like you, me, and others in the world, right? So how do we do that?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it, adopting a non-solo work attitude where, you really want people, pairing up and working with others and switching pairs on a regular basis. So, it's called promiscuous pairing. But doing things like that really spreads tacit knowledge really well. But also, freeing up your more senior people to do these sorts of things and to grow to know that they're part of their job is to grow people. So in the description of Discipline Agile, for example, and some of the process blades that are, the more senior ones like enterprise architecture and others, we make it clear that part of the job of an enterprise architect is to help grow other architects and other enterprise architects in the organization. And we say the same thing of procurement people, for example, and marketing people and others. The senior people should be growing the junior people in order to replace them. And I see right now in a lot of organizations, they're running into serious trouble because they haven't been growing people. And, they've got boomers who are, the boomer generation is pretty much retired or is about to. Then you've got the Gen X people coming up, people my age who are also looking at retirement now after COVID, early retirement. And how do you replace these people? Because when you're in a position that requires 10 or 15 years of solid experience, the implication is you've got to spend, I would need to spend the last 5 or 10 years of my career growing other people into that role, or at least supporting them somehow. And does your organization have that? And if you're thinking on a quarterly by quarterly basis, or even on a project by project basis, more than likely you don't have that in your culture, and you can't figure out why you've got this problem. So it's an interesting challenge that society in general faces right now.
Yeah. And what skills and credentials would you recommend project managers to upgrade in today's scenario?
Well, I think certainly having a solid business understanding is always important, but also understand data. I can't harp on that enough. I think when we talk about, it's really easy to talk about making data-driven decisions or data-informed decisions, but if you understand the implications of that, if you don't understand the fundamentals of data, if you don't understand the fundamentals of some of the things that project managers do and have been trained to do, like get projects in on time and on budget, are absolutely devastating for the quality of the data in your organization. Because what will happen is your teams will take shortcuts that will harm the data quality and quality of other things as well, in the hopes that sometime in the future we'll pay down that technical debt. Well, that rarely comes to pass. So we've got some serious challenges there. So I would argue that if project managers could invest more time understanding the implications of what they do, particularly in the IT space, I think the rules are different, and a lot of project management is based on traditional ways of thinking, and we're building buildings, we're building bridges, and that's a very different environment than building software. And there's certain people that disagree with that, and they are wrong. They're completely and utterly wrong. I thank them for sharing their complete ignorance. It's interesting. The only people that seem to have that opinion are ones that have never been on, never actively spent time on a software development project. So, thanks for sharing nothing with us. But yeah, or they've been completely oblivious to the harm that they've caused, with their traditional ways of working. So anyways, understand the domain that you're in. So if you're a software development project manager, understand software development. Otherwise, you're probably doing far more harm than good, and not knowing it. It's one of the shocking things I've run into many times. People convinced they were doing well when really, no. Yeah, look at the damage over here. I didn't know about that. I know you didn't know about that. Well, now you do. So, please stop what you're doing.
Right. What about the teams? Because teams are supposed to be T-shaped. Is project management one element which team has to know about how project management is executed? What exactly is project management and things like that?
Yeah, so certainly if you're on a project team, you should understand like at least fundamentals of project management. And I would hope that the manager of the team would have some deep understanding of project management. But understand that, but I would rather say that it's really a management or a leadership issue, not just project management. So for example, if I'm on a product team, then we need product management experience. If I'm on a marketing team, we need marketing management experience. So project teams need project management experience. Other types of teams need other type of management experience. And I think we need to look at that. And so I would invite the project management community to really sort of expand your horizons and become more of a management community. Because you really limit yourself in many, and there's nothing wrong with limiting yourself to project management. Don't get me wrong, but if you get tagged as a project manager, it becomes harder to move into, becoming the manager of the marketing team, if that's what your career aspirations are, or the manager of of some other team, because, you're only a project manager. So, you'll be assigned to projects. You won't be assigned to other type of management efforts. So it's really critical to expand your horizons, I would think.
So, how can technology enhance project management and ensure the teams collaborate more effectively, especially with the AI which has come in recently and things like that? So, what do you think about it?
Yeah, so I think I'm actually in school part-time right now, working on a master's degree in AI. So I'm sort of pro AI, but I'm also very realistic about it. And first of all, I think everybody should understand and do the best that they can to keep up to speed on some of the newer things going on in AI. Certainly, project managers should understand this for several reasons. First, chances are, if you're in the IT space, chances are pretty good you're going to end up on an AI project at some point. So you'd better know what you're doing. But also, like any professional in general should understand, how can I use AI to augment what it is that I'm doing and to automate some of the stuff, but also be aware, particularly with generative AI, like, Chat GPT and other things like that. Be aware that the fundamental goal of generative AI is to make stuff up. So everybody complains about hallucinations. Well, yeah, these things hallucinate 100% of the time. It's just, what is the quality of the hallucination? Is if it's a really good hallucination, well, that's okay. If it's a not so good hallucination, then that's a problem. But the real issue is can you detect when the quality of the information coming out of a generative artificial intelligence is any good? Because, so for example, I was working on some stuff a while ago where you'd send a prompt to ChatGPT and would spew out an answer, and sometimes the answer was okay. Sometimes it was really solid. I was impressed. Sometimes it sounded good, but it was complete nonsense. But if you didn't know the domain as well as I did, you would yeah, that's pretty good. I'll put that in my report or whatever I'm doing. And sometimes it was just obvious nonsense. So but that stuff in the middle where it's like, looks good, but it isn't. That's what's really problematic. And I think that, so you better be aware of what's going on when you're, because if you're using Gen AI to put information in your status reports or put it in your cost benefit analysis or whatever, you better hope that it's accurate. Otherwise, because you're responsible for it, right? You're putting your name on it, so it better be good.
Yeah, even Forbes predicted more than 25 million project managers are required by 2030. Is that like too much optimistic, or is it something which you think it's definitely going to happen?
I think that's optimistic. I would rather look at it as, it's like 25 million people are needed that have some project management background. And some of them obviously would be professional project managers, but I think, more of them would be, people with some skills to get the job done. So for example, I do projects at home. Well, my sister right now is renovating her house. So that's a project. And yeah, so she needs fundamental project management skills, but does she need a full-fledged project manager? No, no, not a chance. Right. So, we've got, so there's a project, but there's no project manager, and that's okay. Um, So I think but still project management activities are occurring even though there's no project manager. So that's one way of looking at it.
Another interesting question: what do you think Scrum Master role would continue to be there? Because a lot of hybrid projects are coming in with product owner, project manager, Scrum Master, rotational leadership. So, what do you think, Scott, about that?
Yeah, so I think fundamentally, so the way we handled that in Discipline Agile was we had a role called team lead. So the idea is that a team has a lead, and depending on the type of team, so a project team would have probably have a project leader, a project manager for the lead. A Scrum team would probably have a Scrum master for the lead. A marketing team has a marketing manager for a lead. That sort of logic. And so I think there's going to be Scrum teams going forward. So I think there's going to be need for Scrum masters. Now, having said that, I would invite that crowd to up their skills because some of these sort of Scrum Master certifications are questionable at best. It's not a real cert. If you didn't have to really work for a cert, it's not real. And like attending a couple-day workshop and passing a test that nobody fails, that's not really earning a cert. You're buying a cert. You're not earning it, and it shows. Good certifications. Like I said, I went back to school for a master's degree in AI. It's going to take me a couple of years, and that's okay. But meanwhile, there's other people doing 5-hour online self-taught things, and they're saying, well, I know everything there's no but AI. No. But anyways, but tell the world you're an AI master. Why not, right? Good luck with that.
Mhm.
So
So, what advice would you give to team members who feel demotivated, considering there is recession, there is VUCA situation, there is AI eating away jobs in places? So, what advice would you give to team members who are feeling demotivated today?
yeah, so it's really challenging, and I get it. Like I said, I went back to school, and I'm living the dream right now, and I'm asking questions like, what am I going to do with this degree once I'm out? And it's a degree in AI, so it's pretty, it's one of the better things to be getting these days, and it's still not obvious. So at least not to me. But anyways, so. I would say always be learning, always, be flexible. Because whatever job you think you want to do, and maybe or whatever job you're doing today, it's going to be very different 5 years from now. So you might still have the same job title, but you'll be doing it very differently in 5 years if you're still doing it at all, if you haven't moved on. So be flexible, be willing to learn. Be willing to do things that are different that you're not used to, and because the world is changing and it's not obvious the way that things are changing. AI is having an impact and will continue to have an impact. Gen AI might not. So it's at the top of the hype cycle right now, but I'm not convinced personally. There's a lot of great things going on in AI that are far more interesting than Gen AI. So I think Gen AI is going to run aground. Um, but AI will continue on, so it'll be AI is dead, long live AI type of a situation. So be aware of that. So if something does happen in the Gen AI space, recognize that's only the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of really good stuff going on there, but also recognize that it is a VUCA world. Things are changing dramatically, and you got to be willing to change along with it, and that's fun. It's frustrating if you got to pay a mortgage and stuff like that because you got to take care of business, but it is fun to have all these opportunities to learn and to different things, but it's also frustrating at the same time.
Hmm. So, what opportunities do you foresee for project teams and managers going forward in this year? And because we have just started 2024, right? So we are already seeing a lot of nervousness because of the recession and some global situations which are happening at the moment. So, what do you think would be the opportunities for project teams and managers?
Yeah, so I think, well, project teams in general are okay. Like it's always going to get back to, is this team doing something of value for the organization that the organization needs? And is it making it clear that it's producing value, right? Because I was talking about this earlier. You have to produce value, and it has to be obvious that you're producing value. Otherwise, you're in danger of being dealt with. So there's that. As far as managers go, I think it's one of those things where AI is going to augment some of the activities of management. It is augmenting a lot of the activities of management, and that's probably a good thing. So it'll allow people to managers to actually focus on management and not on the bureaucratic stuff that has been forced upon them. Now, the implication of that is there might be less need for managers, and so that tells you once again had better be adding value and be seen to be adding value. So and pushing paper is not that's the stuff that gets automated away eventually and is being automated away. So be very careful about that. So add real value. I also see sometimes project managers inject bureaucracy into teams in order to justify their existence. That is a bad idea. It doesn't make you any friends, and it's obvious that that's happening. So, and it's one of those things that will get automated away anyways. So, it's really, focusing on adding value is the critical skill, and be seen adding value.
Yeah, and yourself, you started with a company called Royal Bank of Canada as a software engineer, right? It happens to be one of my clients in 2006. I was there in Toronto when I was there in iGate, which is Capgemini now. So from there, you have transitioned to different roles and even to an entrepreneurship. What really inspired you to get into starting something of your own and even set up frameworks, methodologies, toolkits, and things like that?
Yeah. So, well, actually, I had, I guess Royal Bank was my first real job, but I had other jobs before that. But it was interesting. Yeah. So at the time I was at the Royal Bank, I was also still a tutor at the University of Toronto and taking classes and stuff like that. And so after a couple of years at the bank, I decided to go back to school to get a master's degree in information science. But one of the motivating factors for me to leave was I was diametrically opposed to the technical direction that the bank was going at the time. And I had these really weird ideas that the internet was going to take off, that and this is the late 80s, early 90s, remember, right? So I felt, gut feel told me the internet was going to be a thing, that that Windows was going to be a thing, and that object orientation was going to be a thing. And it was made very clear to me by senior management that I was utterly wrong about all three of those, because the bank was not really all that interested at the time in any of that. So it's like, okay, there's no place here for me. So I left and formed my own company. But I also at the time was very interested in methodology. I was constantly asking the question, how does this work? Why does it work? How can we make it work? And then that sort of led me into architecture and methodology and process stuff. So that's how that came out. But and I got very interested in the heavy at the time, the heavier processes like CMM compliant type stuff was very popular. And then UML came out, and I got involved with that right away because at the time I had my own notation as well, and very quickly abandoned it because I could see the writing was on the wall. The UML was going to win, and sure enough, it did. But I actually wrote the first book that had some UML in it, so for whatever that's worth. But yeah, so it was all and then the unified process as well, and I focused a lot on helping to keep it light, and then Agile came along, and that spoke to me, and as did Lean. So, but yeah, it was always my passion was always just figuring out how things work and why, and what's the thinking behind that, and then helping people understand.
Yeah, thank you so much, Scott. You've been quite inspirational and you continue to inspire everyone. I would like to give a pause right now and we'll continue the discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you.